Ads not read by me, Mary Payne, don't necessarily reflect the views of Pink Shade. If you'd like to listen to ad-free, you're going to go on over to Supercast or Patreon, and you can find the links to Pink Shade Prime at pinkshadepodcast.com.
You're not gonna tempt me. You'll never forget me. You're not gonna tempt me. You're not gonna tempt me. You'll never forget me. You're not gonna tempt me.
Yes! You guys, welcome to Pink Shade. I'm so excited. I have Amy Archer here from Little Miss Recap and the one and only Mark L. Walberg from our favorite show, Temptation Island. Welcome, Mark, to the
Yay!
podcast.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for playing the song that will not stop playing in my head.
Now that I got it on my soundboard, I play it on all the other podcasts where we're not even recapping Temptation Island. I just play it. And I was telling you before this, and you can act surprised, but the singer of that song is Lindsay Lohan's sister, Allie Lohan.
I can't get over that. I had no clue. Well, I think that might be the theme of my life. I have no clue. But that's remarkable. And I got to tell you something. I've been in TV a long time, but that theme song is probably the strongest thing I've ever had in my career. People sing it to me all the time.
I would imagine people sing that to you all the time.
All the time. Like, I'll be in the airport and people just come up to me and go, "You're not going to tempt me."
That would so be something I would do.
Yeah.
That would be what I would do, because I'd be like, "You're the guy from the You're Not Gonna Woo, what's the song?" Yeah.
It's
Okay,
so funny
Mark,
how
our
people
first
react
question.
to you when they see you too, because I never know what show it is that they know me from. And so
Right.
either they sing the Tempt Me song or they show me a watch that their grandfather gave them from Antiques. I'm never really sure.
All right, Mark, our first question for you before we get to Antiques Roadshow. My first question, because we're going there too. My
That's
first
good.
question is, we have a bet. What does the L stand for?
My middle name. I have lots of funny jokes for that, but depending on my, opinion of myself on the day, it's either loser or legend. I'm not sure, but Lewis is my middle name.
Oh, we didn't have that one.
We didn't have that one.
Lewis. Lewis.
We had Lawrence and Leonard, and then Amy threw in as a wild card Lucas. I was like, it's not Lucas.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll change it
See?
to that. And what's
Lucas
funny
was
is
the winner.
early in my career, I made the choice to keep my name, Mark Walberg, and it was before Mark Wahlberg became really famous. And there was a period of time where I'm like, maybe I'll just be Mark Lewis. I'll just go with my middle name.
Oh, no.
And then I thought to myself, well, I don't want to change my name because I want everybody I was in high school with that was mean to me to know that I've made it. And then somebody else made it bigger than me, so the joke's on me. That's what happens when you feed your ego.
How many times do people, because I noticed I caught Sebastian doing it on this current season.
He called me
How
Marky
many times
Mark.
do people yell Marky Mark when you walk in a room?
Every day, all day.
Your wife, you walk in for breakfast, she's like, Marky Mark.
Yeah, she's maybe the only one who doesn't, but even I have family members. It's like, well, first of all, anybody named Mark these days gets called Marky Mark, right?
True.
Yes.
And so, and the thing that's it's never been really an issue. It just is what it is. But the thing that's a little frustrating is that I get a lot of tweets and Instagram messages meant for him that I either choose to let go or I qualify. And sometimes when it's real Haiti and attribute something to me that I didn't say or do, I kind of say, hey, check the spelling. It's not me. But
No H. No H.
no H, no abs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No abs.
Yeah. I mean, I have them. I
Right,
just
so
don't know where they are.
Right. Well, I say I've got muscles. They're just hidden. So I do want to know how you went from Antiques Roadshow, one of Amy's all-time favorite shows.
Amazing show.
To You're Not Gonna Tempt Me. How'd you
Different,
go
yet still amazing.
highbrow to lowbrow, both excellent?
Both amazing.
First of all, how dare you call it lowbrow? But I get it. What's funny is I did Temptation Island before I did Antiques Roadshow. Because
you did the previous season.
The original
Yes,
Temptation Island was
I
in
remember.
2001. And so when I got called to do Antiques Roadshow, I was like, they're going to hire the guy from Temptation Island. I don't even see that
Yeah.
happening. And
Mhm.
I joke about the meeting. I took the meeting with the executive producer, um, and she's like, "Why do you think you'd be a good host for Antiques Roadshow?" And I quickly said, "I have no idea. You called me. I'm just trying to get the answer." But I said to them, you know what is true? I said, look, I don't know a thing about antiques, and I think the role of the host is not to be the expert. Although we see that a
Mm.
lot now in TV, I don't think that is
Yeah.
the place. I said, the role of the host is to be the proxy for the audience. So I'm happy to ask dumb questions. I'm happy to ask, I'm happy to admit that I don't know a thing. And if that works for
Mhm.
you, it works for me, and it worked for many, many years over there. So
That's incredible. But
I
I
have
did.
an Antiques Roadshow question.
Okay,
yes,
go.
Okay. What is one of the most fascinating things that you've ever come across on
I
that
get
show?
that question all the time, and I always disappoint with the answer because there's Antiques Roadshow looking at all the items, right?
Mhm.
My
Mhm.
experience always was with the people. And
Okay.
so I never really, it wasn't really the items that were the thing. Um, Although I've
I was
seen some
looking for
crazy stuff.
Titanic there, Mark. I was looking for a Titanic item.
Yeah,
Wrong
I don't know
answer.
about that. I do know that there have been some shocking moments for me. Like I used to, when I have time off, I'd hang out at different tables, and one of the tables I'd like to hang out at was the musical instrument table. And
Mm.
somebody brought in this violin, and they opened it up and pulled it out, and it had this ebony and ivory or whatever seascape in the back, and they thought it was this
Wow.
14th century violin worth all this money. And the appraiser quickly saying, yeah, no, this is an you know 19th century replica, and it's not worth that much money. And the guy
Mm.
Mm.
disappointed, and I was too. And he puts it back in the case, and then the appraiser says, hold on a second. He says, show me the bow. And the bow, I mean, you would look at the bow and go, you got that last week at the at the
Right.
music store, and that was worth $20,000. So
Whoa.
yeah, so that the concept of value and what makes things valuable and what isn't was a constant lesson for me. So I
You know
always
what Facebook group that you would like, Mark, that you should join is Things Found in Walls. And it's
Nope.
huge Facebook group,
don't
and
tell me
it
that because
is
I'll tear up
people.
all my walls looking for stuff.
Right. And I feel like there will
It's
be bugs found in some of those walls, and I can't handle that.
Yeah,
it's wild because it's people that buy these super old homes. I mean, some of these people are, Scotland, England, all
sure.
over some of the United States, not as exciting, but they're tearing down and they're like, oh my gosh, look at this. A person this week posted, and this is not, I cannot make this up. They said they do some sort of like vacation home share, and they happen to be in somewhere, I want to say Egypt, let's just say. And they're on this beautiful seaside town, and they opened their window that morning, their bathroom window, and out they had blocked off a part of the beach the day before. And they were like, okay, well, we can't go over there. They're doing something there, like power line or something. No, they were doing some sort of excavation. And the next morning they opened their window, and it was a full like skeleton had been unearthed. And she was like, this is right outside of our, she was like, we've never had anything, and taking pictures. And everybody on the page was like, joining this page 3 years
Yeah,
ago was finally paid off. I've had to see so many people that had like the razor blades that drop behind the wall. Remember that old timey thing?
yeah,
And people open the walls and it's full of razor blades because
Mm.
they used to have those slits in the wall.
yeah.
And people are like, I've been following this page for 3 years. It finally paid off. I see a skeleton.
Well, the only thing
Isn't
I
that
learned on
wild?
Antiques Roadshow is that I don't own anything of value, so I'd have to open up a wall and find something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as you said, you just recently did a home renovation, so that was your chance.
All I found were things that needed to be fixed that I didn't budget.
Right.
All I found were
Right.
problems.
Yes, right.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, let me ask you this about this year's contestants. We also want to talk about past contestants, but full disclosure, I never watched Temptation Island in the earlier iterations. I've only started watching it in the last 3 seasons. I'm so obsessed with it that I wonder if I should go back to
Mhm.
2001. I should.
Yes.
How many seasons were there? There
There
was
were only
because
like
there's
2, right?
Well, there were two on the network, and then
Yeah.
uh-huh.
a little while later, there was one on a Fox reality cable channel
Mhm.
that no one watched.
Okay.
And then it was gone for 18 years, and then it came back. But the version we're doing now is, I think, much better than the original season was groundbreaking because there had been nothing like it, back in
Mhm.
2001, and
Yeah.
that season
Yeah.
was pretty watchable. It's hard for me to quantify one season over the other. My experience as the host is, the only way I know how to do it is I have to be in it with them for real when it's happening. So I can't really quantify it. People always say, is this season better than that season? I'm like, they all seem the same to
Yeah.
me because I'm in it. So
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right, right.
I actually have
Well,
to look to people like you to know if it's good or bad. If you guys like it, then I know.
It's all good, Mark. It's all
it's
good.
all good. All good. We love it.
Thank you.
So, do you think we think that these contestants this year have moved just like lightning speed faster than the past contestants?
You know,
Why is that? They're watching TV too much and they're trying to be in it like
I don't
TV
know. First
stars.
of all, and it's not a big deal, but they're not contestants. There's nothing to win.
Right.
Yes, that we say that all the time.
Yeah.
I was telling my friend, my producer, about this show. She doesn't watch it. I'm telling her, and she was like, "And what did they win?" And I was like, "Nothing." She goes, "So if you leave with somebody like you boned this guy, so you win?" I was like, "No, there's no winner. You're
Mm-mm.
right. Contestant is the wrong word. It's
Yeah. So,
Participant?
and I kind of dig that
participants.
because there aren't a lot of shows that, the journey itself is all there is. And I think there's
Yes.
that at least, in reality where it's so easy to like orchestrate drama that's not actually real,
Mhm.
because there's a motivation to win money or
Mm-hmm.
some other thing. That
Yes.
in this one, it kind of helps it be a little bit more organic because there really is, other than clout that people want,
Yeah.
I'm sure, but the journey itself, whatever they're going through, ends up being, whether it starts out that way or not, ends up being very real for them. Now, I can't
Mm.
I can't really speak to why things sped up as far as the, you know, fooling around on this season. I think some of it has to do with that our schedule is a little quicker,
Mm.
but
Okay.
I don't think that would really do it because we're not saying, "Hey, you guys better hook up by episode 3 or we don't have a show." Like
Right.
it doesn't happen like that. It's people.
Right.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I try to tell people that we're following the story, not leading the story.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I've learned, being the age I am as opposed to the age they are, is to not judge people's sexual appetite and choices. That we are in an age now where we can recognize that sexuality is personal and there should be no shame or judgment in it, and everybody makes their own choices. Now, how it affects the people that we're in a relationship with is another conversation, and I have that one a lot. But
Yes.
the speed at which people like, it was I forgot what season, but I think Ashley from season, I want to say 2, um the first night that she was in the house with the singles, she hooked up with one of the singles, and I was like shocked, and then I had to go back and say, wait a minute, based on her experience and what was going on, that seemed to be the thing she needed to do. And then I actually apologized to her on the air. I'm saying, okay, look, your pace and my pace and what I think is appropriate, what you think is appropriate, it's not mine to call. It is
Mm-hmm.
mine to ask you about, but you know,
Right.
and I think a lot of the viewers, and then one of the things that's great about watching reality TV is we project ourselves in it. And so I think a lot of the viewers will say, well, that's ridiculous. And how could you? But, relationships are unique unto the people in it. And everybody's journey and what's right for them is their own. And, if we were to turn the cameras around on anybody watching, I think we'd have just as much drama. So,
Well, I think one of the things I appreciate about when you're at the bonfire is you have found a way you don't shame anyone. And I really do
Right.
appreciate that.
well,
Right.
You don't,
thank you.
but you have found a way to point out hypocrisy when you see it.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's a really tough thing. And also, it's tough because they get edited down. So,
Yeah,
Yes.
we were just talking about that today. I said, wait a
Yeah.
minute, Paris was sobbing.
right.
Mark went over and hugged her, and then she's not sobbing all of a sudden.
Actually,
Yeah.
I don't. My executive producer Trifari is the greatest person on the planet,
Yeah.
and I will say that over and over again. And consequently, everybody that works under her whole team, I would take a bullet for.
Yeah.
And I understand that you got to edit to time, and there's a lot that we got to get into an episode and things like that. But I took a little moment on that. I said that hug seemed a little forced and stupid. But what you don't know is that we just had an hour conversation talking about some really deep stuff that I can't remember because I can never remember what we talked about. But I know that there was a whole thing going on, and she was really rocked, and that's why I made the choice myself to go over and sit with her, which I rarely do. Although maybe once a season it happens that I feel like I need to do that.
Yeah.
And in the edit, it looked like I just decided I wanted to go give her a hug and all was good.
But I think we, because we feel like we know you and your style so well. Like we knew that there obviously was something
There was
that you
more.
just
There was
weren't like
more.
creeping over on her.
Yeah,
Like
and you
we
know what
knew
happens? Thank
that
you.
something happened.
Thank you. I feel better about that because I was obsessed.
Yeah.
But I think what often happens is that, my line of questioning isn't often linear. So, in other words, if
Mm.
this were a written show and I was
Mm-hmm.
just a host trying to hit the marks, all the questions would be, well, why did you do this? And why did you do that? And why did you do this in that relationship? And my questioning is usually about, look, you can't control what the other person is doing. So let's talk about what's coming up for you. What's coming up
Right.
for you? And it usually has nothing to do with the relationship you're in. It has everything to do with your past relationships. So we end up going down roads
Right.
about family and the loss of her mother and her relationship with her father and things that may not be so watchable for the audience, and it certainly isn't part of the storyline, but it's where we end up going. So sometimes you get some really great moments, and sometimes I've wasted all of production's time by having these conversations. So
We need to figure out how to have extended episodes with all of that therapy talk. I
it's
would
so
love it
funny
so
you said
much.
that. I just got like a
Put
bunch
it
of
on
tweets.
Peacock. Put it on Peacock.
Well, a bunch of
Yes.
tweets came up this week saying, we wish we could just have the unedited live version of the bonfires. I said, I
Yes.
think you'd probably be bored and sick of me. But
Mm,
I do think there may be
mm,
something in it. I joked with my wife. We don't watch a lot. I don't watch a lot of reality TV, but she and my daughter and others do. And I was watching, I think, The Bachelor, and one of
mm.
the girls who got voted off right off the bat, and she was sort of throwing this tantrum, and this moment was going on. It was very dramatic. And I said just offhandedly to my wife, I wish that when they get voted off of other shows, they show up at my bonfire and I get to have a conversation with them because they look like they're in such pain, and I'd love to have a
Oh my
conversation with
God,
them.
you're giving me an idea here, Mark.
So, who
Can
knows?
you
There
picture
might
these
be
ladies from The Bachelor in their gowns, like walking up, like,
yeah, they
"Hi, you guys
teleport.
having a bonfire?"
They
It
come
could be
out of
called the exit
Survivor in a
interview.
loincloth or a gown from The Bachelor or,
Yes,
whatever.
yes.
And
It
so
could be
maybe
called
there's,
the exit interview, and it could just be you
yeah,
interviewing everybody who's voted off every reality show.
Real
I'm into
Housewives,
it.
anything. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Anything.
Congress, I'll have them come in. I have no problem with
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yep. Everybody.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Everybody.
so maybe, we'll see what happens if I'm ever allowed to do a podcast. Maybe I'll do something like that. I don't know. But that was really more of a joke.
Ah,
But look, the
Well, like
bonfires
I
to
said,
me. Well, I'm sorry.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I
Oh,
was
okay.
just saying that the
Like I said, I
bonfires.
appreciate how you find these moments to point things out. And I just want to say, because our audience, the Bunkies, really appreciated when you said to Hall, it's not about picking a handmaid.
Yeah, that was a little aggressive. Thank you. I cringed when I heard it because
it was perfect.
you got to
It
remember,
was
I
perfect.
go to the
It
island
was perfect.
and I go with my wife Robbie, right? She's there. And we do these bonfires, and so that the listeners of your podcast know that, like, you'll see 6 minutes of it or 5 minutes of it on TV, but it's almost like a half hour to 45 minutes per person. Like
Mhm.
like the girls' bonfire could be an hour and a half long, right?
Yeah.
And then another 2 hours for the guys or whatever. And so I go home afterwards and I'm in it. Like there's no script and we're just going. And I'll lay in bed and I'll go, oh my God, did I really say that? And as things come up, and my wife has to be the one saying, this was good and that was okay and this wasn't great. But that handmaid, I mean, I meant what I was saying. I probably could have said it more delicately, but I was basically saying, look, you got to build a relationship. First of all, this whole timeline thing that I did when I was younger and kids do, I want to be married by here. I want kids by here. I want my career by here.
Right.
And that's really adorable because life doesn't seem to fit in those boxes.
No.
And the other thing is that I'm keenly aware of is that, you don't just get to say, I'm going to have a kid now, because sometimes that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So
Right.
what I was simply saying was, maybe as you're looking at your relationship, you would look at the relationship and not who's going to mother your children for you, which now that I say it is a much better way of saying it.
Well, let me tell you, English teachers everywhere stood up and applauded,
Yeah.
myself
Well,
included.
we were big fans of that show, The Handmaid's Tale. And as a matter of fact, when we were shooting season 3 and we were in the bubble, it was during COVID and we couldn't leave the
Mhm.
hotel room. We literally just watched Handmaid's Tale over and over again.
There you go.
And I think that's what obviously that reference came to. But I was basically saying, oh, look, man, I know. Look, I don't want to discount the things that you want that may be reasons why you and Caitlin aren't connecting. But I was just suggesting maybe work on your connection to Michaela or whatever your future is going to be before you start planning out having kids. It's an important
Yeah.
Yeah.
question to ask. Do you want kids? Is that something in your future? Um, but
Well, he blew it. He blew it this week. It was all of a sudden. It was like so, and then it's so interesting this week. This episode we just saw with, she says like, "Oh, I think you're my soulmate. I can't imagine being around without you." And then about that kid thing seems pretty important. How quickly, if we got together, would you want to have kids? And he's like, "No big deal. Take your time, girl. Whatever
well,
you think." I was like, "Well, that was the whole point with Caitlin."
and I think that may have come out of the extended conversation in the bonfire, where
Yeah.
it caused him to to pause a moment and go, okay, you know, and I when I saw that clip, I felt for Caitlin actually, because you realize that if we in relationship have that space for others to say, look, I want kids, do you want kids? And when that's right for us,
Yeah.
we'll hopefully have that blessing, is different than saying, look, clock's ticking, girl. I'm gonna put a
Yeah.
ring on it, but you better, you better pop one out in the next year because I'm this age and I
Yeah.
want it. And so that was the point I was making in it. And while him saying to Michaela, if I were Caitlin, I'd be like, well, hell, man, if you'd have taken that pressure off of me, maybe we'd be in a different place. Is
Yes.
what I would say if I were Caitlin at that point.
Yeah. Totally.
But to
Totally.
Paul's
Yeah.
benefit, maybe that was him hearing some of the conversation we had and going, maybe I shouldn't put so much pressure on that, and sadly, and maybe let's not put an emotion on it, but one of the phenomenon of relationship, and I think I said it in season 1 to Casey Campbell when she was leaving without Evan, which is a season you should watch.
Okay.
I said, as she was pretty upset about their breakup, I said, sometimes the lessons you learn here are the ones we apply to the next relationship.
To the next one.
Yes.
But isn't that how it works? And one of the things I constantly talk about is that Temptation Island is not about, is your partner going to cheat or not? It's about you exploring your individuality and what you need to define love in a different way, because our definition of what love is evolves as we get older and wiser. Maybe not older,
Yes,
but
for sure.
wiser. And so that to me is what I'm driving home, is like, look, you get to have the fantasy of what a love relationship is, but you need to be able to define it and declare it before you're going to get it. And what we normally do is repeat relationships that we're familiar with.
Yes.
And at least, and so the way I always describe it is like in middle school at lunch, you meet a girl and you're like, I'm in love. I love you. And you say it.
Yeah.
In high school, you're like, well, that wasn't love. That was just middle school. But in high school, you're like, I love you. And then you get your heart broken. And then suddenly you're like, I don't throw that I love you out as quickly now. Right. And
Right.
then as life goes on, you realize that the big three, the I love you phrase, is really precious, so,
Yes.
and that I think is sort of oversimplifying the idea that, define it a little deeper than just acquiescing to, speaking in contractor terms, the punch list. You got a punch list of
Right.
what I want in a relationship, and 80% of it's good. So I'm going to forget the other 20%. And that's good enough for me because the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, those things that you're acquiescing end up haunting you later. So let's figure out what you really want, and you can have it.
Well, I want to talk about a couple for this season as well as Maricela and Christopher. And, sort of right at the beginning when you guys did that sort of like that mixer at the beginning, which was a new thing. And we see him sort of, first of all, he like outs her as being bisexual, which is not cool.
Yeah.
It tells everybody and kind of, well, whatever. Then he later pulls her to the side and says, no more drinking.
Yes.
And you see him being very controlling. And then when he goes over to the boy's house, the first thing she says is, I solved my first problem. I got rid of him. I was like, did she come to Temptation Island to get rid of him? There's easier ways. But then you see her this episode, like, as I was saying on our recap earlier, like, wow, she just seems all of a sudden this episode so much
That's
lighter.
what I said.
She
And
just
she
seems
even
so much
says, she
happier.
says, like, I reclaimed my power.
Yeah. So
She says
Yes.
that in this
let's
episode.
talk about that. So
Yeah.
it seems like she gets to the island and goes, boy, thank God I'm rid of him.
Yeah.
But maybe the realization of the relief of that didn't happen until she was rid of him for a moment. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things I often say to these guys is that, look, this is kind of dark that I said to them this year. I don't think it was on camera. I said, look, you're coming here with these relationships, and you're going to give yourselves the break of being single again, and then you're going to come back together and decide if your relationship is worth saving or not. I said, but I'm going to let you know some hard facts. The relationship you came here with, you've already broken up. Done.
Mhm.
Because if things go as I think they will, who you will be at the end will be somewhat a different person. And therefore, whatever that relationship was isn't even, or it doesn't apply. And now at
Right.
the end, if Maricela and Christopher come back together and meet the new versions of each other and there's love there, then that new relationship begins with the same people, right?
Mm.
But I had to
Yeah.
say to them, look, you got to realize a lot happens when you remember what it is to be an individual. Back
Mhm.
to
Right.
that acquiescing thing is that in relationship, there's you, there's me, and there's us. And we start living as us, which is really beautiful,
Yeah.
unless the us isn't allowing the you and the me to, a healthy relationship. And I don't know if one exists, but it's fluid,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in those healthier relationships, you get to celebrate the we, the us, and allow the individual to be an individual.
Right.
And I think that's a very, very difficult thing to maintain, and that's why I say it's fluid. And I think I even said on this episode, Temptation Island is extreme and it hurts. It's not the way that normal people. I hate to say normal people, but that's not possibly the recommended clinical way to handle your relationship problems.
Right.
But
Right.
that said, now that you're here, what does come true is that when you take a breath and you take a break from what was a relationship that wasn't firing on all pistons, and you reflect on the part of you may have forgotten about, which is, what did
Mhm.
I want? What do I want? And then you have other people mirroring or adding stuff that, triggering feelings that you forgot about, or things that you wish you had that you didn't have, or things that you appreciate in your relationship that you are glad you're not in. That's what the journey becomes about. And as best you can, I hope people hear this, but in the bonfires, I'm always sort of arguing for patience and tolerance. Like, even the worst things, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater yet. Even if they have sex with someone else and that's cheating and whatever,
Yeah.
what would happen if we allowed it to happen and then saw who people are at the end of it? It's not without pain.
It's rough. It's rough.
Tough.
That's
Well,
rough.
Yeah.
one of the more interesting couples, in my opinion, psychologically, is Vanessa and Roberto.
And I caught a bunch of
So,
shit about that one too.
well, I think that, we saw Vanessa come in and I have these high standards and I'm carrying him and he's not
Yeah.
meeting them. But
Mhm.
now we see her starting to shift. It's very subtle, but we see her starting to soften a little bit.
Well,
And I loved how you were able to figure out where those defenses were coming from.
you should hear the longer conversation.
Well, and you were able to explain them though and articulate them to Roberto, which I think was the most important part. Like Vanessa
Agree.
probably knows on some level, but she probably has never been able to say that to him. And I think giving him that perspective
Well,
was
again,
helpful.
I make mistakes all the time because it's not scripted, and I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth until it happens, and then I often cringe at what I just said. But what came up for me when Roberto came on the show, he could barely put a sentence together, or misspoke, and he would get flustered and look at her and all this, and then all of a sudden he's like throwing out bars of paragraphs,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm,
And I'm like,
mm-hmm.
wow. So my take on it wasn't, I think you guys should stay together. And people thought I'm manipulating the story, right? Trying to keep
Uh-huh.
them together.
Okay.
Wasn't it? I was saying that this guy who's standing up for himself, who has a backbone, who's articulate, who's expressing himself intimately and emotionally, is exactly the kind of guy that I think Vanessa could soften to. And with
Mhm.
Vanessa, my conversation to her has nothing to do with Roberto. You know, I often
Right.
listen to not what they're saying, but why they chose to say that. So
Mhm.
I'm constantly saying to her, there must have been a time when you were vulnerable, soft, and gentle and easy. And then there
Mhm.
must be a reason why you're not, or at least my experience of you isn't. So what I'm asking you is when when were you that person and what happened that made you this person? And so my
Right.
take on Roberto was his love for her had him be the whipping boy,
Yeah, totally.
which we often do in love. That's codependence. We're doing the best we can and we think what we're doing. I said, but you standing your ground may actually be that strength and backbone that she needs to let down. And so what I found
Mhm.
interesting is that her complaint is that he's immature, when in fact he's younger and certainly different,
Mhm.
but he's showing, I think, in these episodes some maturity.
I agree.
And
Yes, he's growing. We're watching him
yeah,
grow.
and I'm not
Yes,
so
we
sure
are.
they're meant to be together or that lasts or whatever, but I
Right.
did think it was interesting that if he shows up as that man
Mhm.
to her and says, "Hey, hey, hey, hold on a second," you
Yeah.
know, and adding, if you heard that language, I'm like, you could say this, this, and this, and you're safe, and I love you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Will that give her an opening
Interesting.
to be the girl that he needs her to be? Because I think he has a lot of love for her as well, and I don't have any idea. I don't know the answers, and I'm hopefully not blowing it. You know, which is
No,
my constant
we
concern.
we we really were wondering, like, is this a Cyrano de Bergerac thing? Does he have something in his ear telling him what to say? Because we're like, he's such a great therapist. Like, how is he getting this on the fly, like this information to say exactly what? And I think it does have to do with like you're older, you're in a successful marriage, and these are all pretty young. You know, they've grown up in a whole different generation where everything is on your phones and online dating and all these things that I didn't have, when I was dating and whatnot. But I think that whatever you say, other than the joke about the handmaid, which was so spot on, everything else is so like serious. And you will look at them and you say, I feel you and I'm here for you. And people are crying and we're like, Mark L. Wahlberg did it
Hold
again.
on, I'll
I
get
want
you
to
an
Did
talk
it
to
answer right
Mark
again.
L.
now.
Wahlberg about my
Let
relationship.
Yes.
me see if I can get an answer to
Yes.
your question. Okay. Uh,
Is Robbie in your ear? Is Robbie in your
if
ear?
she could be, she would be, by the way. That's a
Yeah.
funny story, I'll tell you. So here's how this goes. And I hesitate because I don't want to sound like the actor who says, I do my own stunts, that guy.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I do have an earpiece, as most
Yes.
hosts do these days.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
how we use the earpiece are two ways. One is in between takes, like even when the cast isn't there, it allows Trafari to talk directly to me to say, okay, we need to do this pickup, or here's a note, or whatever. Here's what we're working on the booth, or whatever. It's just communication, so it doesn't have to go through a third party. So that's that. The other use of the earpiece, which is really helpful, is that during the conversations when I'm in it and there is no script, if I and you got to remember, in one night there's 8 separate conversations. So
That's a
if
lot.
something comes up that I miss, that I didn't hear, or I didn't respond, or there's a question begging to be asked that I missed, Trafari jumps in
Mhm.
and says, "Well, what did Vanessa feel about blah 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 blah?" And then I'll say it,
Mm.
right? So
Okay.
Right.
it's collaborative in that sense that she is there. Now, she would probably tell you, and I will, that um, we're on a lot of very much the same page. So I can hear when she's about to talk to me, because when she clicks it open, I can hear the ambience in the booth in my ear. So I can't tell you how many times I hear it click on and then click off, because what I just said is what she was going to tell me to say.
Yeah.
But to answer the question that I often get, people say, "Oh, there's a therapist feeding him therapy,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's not the case at all. There's a therapist
Hmm.
in the booth sitting next to my
Mhm.
wife, who's there to watch what's going on in case the cast needs to talk to them off camera
Yes.
if somebody's in crisis or stuff. And we constantly have conversations, he and I, where he'll say, how did you feel about this? But mostly it's him just telling me, that I didn't do the wrong thing. And
Yeah.
so I don't want to quantify 90% to 100%, 20%, 50%, but
Mhm.
I will say that I'll take the responsibility of the things that come out of my mouth. I've
Yes.
said in my ear. So I am wearing an earpiece.
Right.
Most of the
Yes.
earpieces used to give me notes in between takes of what we're doing next and
Mhm.
what pickups we need and things, TV stuff. But Trafari is listening, and we are doing the bonfire.
That's
So
cool.
if I miss a question, if there's something that begs to be asked that I got distracted or I didn't hear, she is got me. And she'll just ask the question and then I'll ask it. But I don't, like I said, I don't want to be the guy who says I do my own stunts, that guy.
Yeah.
But I
Tom
will take
Cruise.
the responsibility that if it came out of my mouth, it was my thought.
Of course.
Because
But we are just always so amazed that whatever you say is like, yes, yes. But let me ask you this about a past contestant. 2 seasons back, we had Erica and Kendall. And Kendall, for lack of a better term, was just such a piece of shit. He really was. And the whole time we're like,
Mark's like,
Erica.
I can't co-sign that.
I know you can't say that.
I
We
can
can
say
say that.
whatever I
The whole
want. I
time we're
just am
like,
not going to judge him as a piece of shit. But I get it. I've got
as
thoughts
a
on it
as a boyfriend, he was a terrible
for
boyfriend.
her.
So when you
For her.
come for her, but when you come across somebody like that, and then on the same season you have somebody like Kristen and Julian, and our joke with Julian was he would be in the hot tub just chilling, and a couple of girls would jump in, and he would fling himself backwards out of the hot tub to get away from any. He was like, "You're not getting any 2-second clip of me doing nothing."
He was amazing.
He was amazing. So you have Kendall, who everybody is just like hates, and then you have Julian, who everybody loves. Do you find yourself, if you're talking to them, to be like, Kendall, come on, man, like, come on?
Look, if it comes to me, I say it. I will tell you that I was talked off the ledge with Kendall before I went into one of the bonfires because I was pretty heated, and I was the phrase I was going to say to him is, "Look, if you're hooking up with people as part of to get information and learn and whatever, I have no judgment of that. But if you just came here to you know, hook up with everybody, I'm like,
Right.
they're not hoes and I'm not a pimp. That's not what this is about." And they said, maybe find a different phrase. And so I
But
did.
we were
And,
all thinking
and
that.
so my take on it, first of all, let me say this about Kendall. He probably tested higher than anybody in the history of the show, IQ wise.
Hmm.
Very smart.
Okay.
Very smart.
Okay.
And if you watch the reunion, I apologize to him
hmm
because I say to him, wow, here I am as everybody's piling on you, and I was one of them. I didn't ask you I never asked why you are this. Who hurt you? What's the pain that has you be this? And he got quiet and teary. It was the first time he showed any real emotion. And then I felt like I kind of dropped the ball because we could have done that a lot earlier. Let's say this
Right.
about that, though. What I love about Kendall is he is unapologetically Kendall. Very successful. From what I can tell on his Instagram that I follow, that he's in a relationship and that's working out great.
Okay, good.
And this is a little heady, but I think often when we're in relationship, when people are in relationship with other people, while we like to think that the other person is the ogre, they're really just who we've created them to be for us. So Kendall, in his overbearingness with Erica, has a responsibility in his behavior. But Erica, not being in her strength and power, has created a relationship where she has what I would suggest something familiar, a love relationship that mirrors love relationships she's either witnessed or had in the past, where she feels less than and she's trying to please and all those things. And what happens often, especially in the relationship that break up, and oftentimes from the female standpoint, I don't know what the outcome will be, but we're seeing it with Roberto actually now, is there's this realization, and Maricela and others, wait a minute, hold on a second. I have value. What I want matters, as opposed to the way we usually, and I say the way we usually search for and find relationship is, I hope they love me.
Right.
And so, Kendall served a purpose for Erica. My understanding is
Yeah.
they're both in very happy relationships now, and that's
Oh, good.
favorite.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So Kendall is not right for Erica, nor would he be right for me, but he was right for someone. And and he's unapologetic about his behavior. And so, and what my thing with him was, I want to call him out to say, hey, I don't have a judgment of what you're doing. I'm asking you why you're doing it. Because there's one thing that I'm not down for, and another that I can indulge.
Yeah.
If you just don't give a shit and you don't care if it hurts Erica and you're just trying to, have sex, yeah, there are
Yeah.
other shows for that.
Yeah.
You
Yes,
know,
totally. And I want to ask you about a couple seasons back, two more couples that we saw. Ash and Hanya had, to me, one of the best journeys because they came in one thing and they left so opposite, with Hanya just being a broken shell of a man, like begging Ash to come back. And she's like, no. And she was so overly dramatic with Taylor. She was just like, I love you. And that was like a lot. And he was like, I'm just here to have fun. Whoa, whoa. But I loved their journey. And I loved how, when he first came on, I was like, you and I talked about this a lot, Amy. I was like, Hanya is the guy that I fell for when I was that age. Oh my God, I'm falling for everything he's selling.
Yep.
And then I loved seeing her sort of like come into her own. Now, again, the whole thing with Taylor was way too dramatic, but she figured it out. But I loved their story. And also on that season, LaSalle's and Ashley was the craziest thing I've ever seen. LaSalle's specifically, how crazy he was on day one. Like, Trace, I'm in love with you. You're going to have all my children. We're going to get married. We're going to have a white picket fence. I'm moving to LA. And it was like, whoa, you've known this girl 35 minutes. Like, that season was so wild because, like, Iris and Luke, like, they were fine. You could tell they were going to stay together. Jillian and Edgar, like, that was never going to work. But those two couples were so compelling to us.
well,
Feelings.
my take on that. So that I love you right out of your mouth like that is real
Yeah.
for people who have yet to experience heartbreak and things like that. Like I said, the weight of I love you becomes heavier once someone has broken it for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
we project on people by their physicality what their maturity level is. And so
Mm-hmm.
we expect him to be a man, and he is in many areas, but in love, he was still a kid.
Yeah.
So the getting swept up into the I can only hope, I only can guess, but getting swept up in the crush infatuation stage, and couple that with whatever frustration he was having in his relationship with Ashley, whatever that was, had him go, this is love. And
Mm-hmm.
he may have been drunk when he said it,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and while those watching the show will go, well, that's so extreme and it's so fast. I'm going to tell you something, you guys. I've done it and I've seen others do it. It's
I've done it, Mark.
Please.
I feel seen.
And that's the other
And I
thing.
ain't been drunk.
Okay, cool. And by the way, that's one of my favorite phrases. I feel seen, because it goes back to what I think is the only thing that matters in human relationship. It's not, we don't want to be fixed. We don't want solution. We just want to know that we've been seen and heard, and then we can kind of deal with it. But what I think is important for viewers to know is that relationships, when we see it in extreme, here's what I wanted to say. How do I come up with what I say in the bonfires? Well, I listen a little deeper than others, and I come from a different place, and I have some skill there. But the point is, when you're in it, like you're in the relationship, you can't see the forest for the trees. But for the
Right.
viewers and for anyone
Right.
outside of any problem, quite frankly, it's very clear because we're not triggered or emotionally attached. So we can see what's said and heard without any projection of our past or what it makes us feel like. And we go, well, duh. And so we look at the
Yeah.
TV and go, these idiots, good, duh. But if, like I said, if I were to turn the camera on you and your relationship, you would give me the soap opera of story of what you hold to be true,
Right.
that is entirely your projection and a soap opera. And so
Right.
while everybody's like, wow, Mark came up with it, if you just listen, it's right there. And what you have to
Yeah.
do is take your own agenda, ego, and let me
And
say
put it
something that's
aside.
cool and let them think I'm great. And if you can put that aside enough to really listen deeply, then the observations that I say are and then are sometimes wrong, you have a better chance of hitting something that matters because it's clearer to us who aren't emotionally invested in it. Like it's not triggering to
Yes.
me to watch Roberto and Vanessa. It's triggering for Vanessa. The question is
Right.
why and who did that? Who placed the trigger on you? And you don't have to have it if you don't want it, or you can keep it if it's working for you.
Okay, speaking of the bonfires, I have a burning question.
Burn it out. That's
Oh.
ironic. I
How
like
do
it.
I who has the job of selecting the footage? How do I get that job?
Yeah.
And is it always like, so say for example, like I'm thinking Kendall and Erica. Like I remember, boom, all the footage of him having threesomes. Do they always pick the most egregious cheating footage, or do they selectively like choose what goes with the storyline?
I can't really answer that because I have nothing to do with it. I
Ugh, it's so
assume,
fascinating to me.
well, that's another thing that people can't believe, but it's true. So I assume that ultimately Trifari is the one who decides.
Okay.
Okay. And we have this debate a lot because they could show clips to allay their concerns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or make them freak out.
Mhm.
I don't know that answer. I'm going to guess that,
Either way, it's something that the other person did, no matter what. It's
well,
like what they say about
they're both
reality TV.
dangerous.
Either way you said it.
They're both
So, yeah,
dangerous
right.
because
Yeah.
I used to say it on the show, but they've cut it out now. We don't say it anymore. But I used to say these clips are out of context. You can take them as they, that they may be
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
or they may not
Mm-hmm.
be. So I don't say that now, and we assume that people kind of get that. I think that um, obviously the most scandalous clips are the most watchable for the viewing audience.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a vote in that by choice and by the way it is. I don't look at the clips beforehand.
That was my next question. Yeah.
Occasionally, if it's something dramatic, they'll say, "Yeah, you're not gonna believe what went down," and that's,
Mhm.
and then I can assume that's gonna be in the clip. But even if I'm told the subject matter, I try not to look at anything before we go there. So, and my question is almost the same every time. What did you see?
Right.
And I'm
Right.
always
So
amazed.
you're not watching all the footage of the house like what we're seeing on TV. You're going to the bonfire, seeing the clip on the tiny iPad at the same time that they're seeing it on the tiny
It's a
iPad.
much bigger screen now, so let's give them props. Uh, I don't see 90% of the show until it airs.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
in production, there's a hot sheet. So a co-executive producer writes a overview of where we are in the stories, and I get
Mhm.
those
Okay.
every other day, and I read 80% of them most of the time. I'm not a good homework
Mhm.
guy, so I have some
Mhm.
understanding of where things are going. But I think it's important if the producers are okay with me winging it, which they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
I think it's a gamble for production. If I were a producer, I don't know
Mhm.
if I'd let my, you know, tool of a host to do that. But so far, so good. So for me, I trust Trafari. So what I'll do is go in cold and uh, let it rip. And I know that what is edited will be within an integral choice. Although sometimes I don't necessarily agree, but I get it. And I know that she's got my back to ask questions I might miss. So that
Mhm.
allows me to do something in my longer than I care to mention time in television, I've rarely experienced, which is let it rip, go do your thing, and we got you.
Hmm.
And so it used to be that Trafari and I would sit down and we kind of talk through each story. Like, here's where Roberto's at. We think he's going to feel this way, and and we still do that as I pass her in time. But she's busy, and I'm not. But she's busy, and so literally there have been bonfire nights, and I'm very uptight on bonfire day. Like, you don't want to be around me on the day leading up to it. And then I'll pass her, and she'll kind of check in with me and give me a hug, and literally it's like, "You good?" I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And I'm like, you good? And she's like, yeah, I'm good. And she goes, I got you. And I know, I said, I know. And she says, all right. So that's basically how we prep. Um,
Hmm.
although sometimes there's more conversation there, and I will often go sit with her in the control room on those days and watch the aftermath of the bonfire to see what the reactions are. And I get some information there, but I don't watch any of the reality footage. Rarely. I mean, maybe
Mhm.
there's some scandalous moment. They're like, oh, you're not going to believe this shit. And I just happen to be there and I'll see it
Yeah.
as a viewer. But as best as I can protect me being separate from that, right? So that,
Because then you're not skewed. They're not skewed from what you've seen. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, look, I'm overthinking it. The cast is far more savvy than I am, as far as the TV thing goes. But for me, and I say this on day one, it's real. I don't know any other way of doing it. I'm all in. I'm buying what I'm
Mm.
selling. You may not. But for me, it's important to preserve a relationship with them that has at least some modicum of trust.
Y'all, I am so sick of ordering carry out food and getting takeout all the time. My kids spend so much on food delivery, but I think I have finally fixed the problem. I am using Every Plate this summer instead of takeout to save money while still enjoying quick, yummy, delicious meals. Every Plate's meals are 50% cheaper than your average fast casual meal. They're the easiest way to eat affordably. You could put the money that you save using Every Plate towards some fun summer plans. Go to the pool, girl. Do something with that money. You can customize Every Plate meals to your liking with options to swap proteins and sides, or you can add a protein to a veggie dish each week. You do you. Every Plate offers 26 tasty and affordable recipes that change every week, including 15-minute or less dinners. Yes, that's my jam. And oven free recipes. Oven free. Don't heat up your house. It's hot outside. It's easy to find something for every meal of the day. The other night, I made these delicious taquitos and everybody loved them. It was better than ordering out something and, of course, way cheaper. So you can get $1.49 per meal by going to everyplate.com/podcast and entering code PINKSHADE49. So get started with Every Plate for just $1.49 per meal. Do you guys hear that? By going to everyplate.com/podcast and entering code PINKSHADE49. Okay, again, I'm going to say it one more time. Everyplate.com/podcast, enter code PINKSHADE49, and you're getting $1.49 per meal.
Right? And I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
wringing my hands behind their back trying to make misery for them. And that's not where I come from at all.
Right.
I'm not afraid of the misery. And I'm always looking for the answer in that. Because pain is part of a relationship often. And okay, so my thing is to say you're not alone in it. We can talk about it. I will support you as best I can from my seat. And what can we learn?
Hmm.
I have some filming process questions for you. So this is done. Is it still done? Is it in Maui?
We did 4 seasons on Maui. The last one was on Big Island in Kona. So that
Okay.
was a little short.
So how long are you filming?
So this season was a little quicker. I
Mhm.
think we were there for 3 weeks. It was a
Wow. I
little
thought you were
quicker.
going to say like 2 months.
No, I would love it. It's the one show that I'm like, take as long as you want.
Yes.
For two reasons. One, I'm in Hawaii with my wife. That's great. And I
Yeah.
know this is going to sound like bullshit, but I love this staff and crew like family. There's 170
Yeah.
of them.
Sure.
And
Mhm.
like literally, there was something happened on set and they needed me and they couldn't find me. And the first
Mhm.
place they looked was the easy up in the parking lot where the grips hang out. Because they know
Uh-huh.
that's where I
Yeah.
usually am. you know, so
Yeah.
that's my hang. Like those, that's the
Mhm.
one department that's all local Hawaii. They're all either from Maui or
Mm.
or from Big Island
Yeah.
or whatever. And we, during the bubble when we shot and we couldn't leave, that's where I hung out because there's nowhere else to go, and we became good friends. So that's kind of everybody knows I'm kind of if I'm hanging out, if I'm hiding, it's usually in the grip lounge. Um, but the point
So
being, I don't. You could do 50 weeks a year would not be enough for me, and
yeah.
Or
I
Yeah.
love
us.
the
Or
people
for
I
Or
work
us.
with.
us. Or us. So you're in a hotel and they're staying in these two homes. Now, the question about the homes is, so we know that like each of the 4 guys has a bedroom, each of the 4 girls has a bedroom. How many bedrooms are in this house? Do they have like the 8 singles all like in
In like a
Brady
bunk
Bunch
room,
style bunk
like
beds?
in a bunk room.
In a bunk
Yeah.
room. No way.
So, and
I think we saw the bunk room
now
on
there
one of
have
the
been
What?
seasons
seasons.
where there was drama that happened in
Yeah.
that area.
Yep.
So, and of course they can maybe find a place to stay in the house every now and then. So that happens.
Right.
And so the way it works is that we have 2 houses, and they're depending on the island, but they're usually about 15, 20 minutes apart drive.
Mhm.
And I usually am in a condo, or this year I was in a hotel because
Yeah.
it was closer. And what was great was my
Mhm.
hotel was literally, the house was at the entrance to the hotel, one of the houses.
Oh,
So I would
yeah.
walk to work, and it was just the greatest. And then usually Robbie, me, hair and makeup, makeup and wardrobe, jump in the rented Jeep they give me, and we drive to the next house, and there's a little setup there, and we get ready and we do whatever that is. And then,
Yeah.
but I don't do as much of the dropping in the houses now. It's mostly bonfire stuff. We don't do, like, it used to be a big date selection. That would be a big thing, or vote offs were a big thing. And now they're kind of doing those on their
Mhm.
own. They don't really need me for that.
We did notice date selection did not happen. Remember, I mentioned that
Well,
in the recap.
that's
That
kind of a
didn't happen
Trifari
this
move
episode.
too, is like, let's make date
Yeah.
selection more organic. When you want to ask somebody, and I say it in the bonfire, look, you got another date coming
Yeah.
up, make sure you ask somebody out. And we used to do it in this selection way, and that's cool.
Right.
But I,
Hmm.
the more the soup boils down, I think,
Mhm.
and we're learning. Like, to me, in my flavor, I don't like the parties as much as I like the dates and the hanging out. But I'm a
The
conversation.
parties are
Oh, we get some
insane.
good footage from the parties.
I know,
Wow.
I know, but
Wow.
Robbie and I watched the show, and like,
Yeah.
oh, bonfire, okay, oh, wow, oh, emotional, and then okay, party, and we're like, oh,
And it's like
Well,
twerk, 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 twerk.
stop
I
twerking,
do feel,
stop.
Mark, though, that they
So,
put you in sort of a wet blanket situation, like a Mark the Narc
Yeah, yeah,
situation, when you have to walk
it's
in
a joke.
and everybody's partying and you have to be like, "We're going to
hi
I
bonfire
say it all
tonight,
the time. I'm the
guys."
vibe killer.
guys.
Yeah, I come
Yeah.
in and kill the vibe every time, and
So we like that you're not put in that position as much.
but
Let's
I
say
wish
that.
there was time, like, if there was a longer production, I wish there was time where I could just come and hang out. And by the way, in this season I did. And I think you're
Mhm.
going to see that at the reunion. Actually, there's some footage of this.
Oh,
Oh.
One
okay.
of the things that we played with that I had no idea we were going to do is, like, when they go on dates. So 4 girls pick 4 guys, and they're on dates, and then
Mhm.
4 guys pick the. And in this show, it's a smaller crowd. So after an elimination or 2, there's like 2 people left in the house, 2 or 3 people
Yeah.
that aren't dating, and nothing's going on. So Trifari had the idea and said, how about, and literally it went like this. She's like, hey, they're on dates today. Can you come and drop in? I'm like, okay. And we didn't really have a
Okay.
plan. So I did a drop in with the girls when the guys were on the dates, and we just sort of talked about stuff. And I had a drop in with the
Yeah.
guys, and it was Tajik and Sebi.
Oh, I want to see this
And
footage.
it,
Yes,
and
is what we need.
I don't want to,
Put it on
I don't know
Peacock.
what I'm
We need
supposed to
it.
tell you, but there was a moment where I'm holding Tajik like he's my son, and he's sobbing on my shoulder. So there's some moments.
We need to see it. Extra footage.
Yeah,
Extra
I think
footage.
you're going to
So,
see some of it in the reunion special. I would just give you
good.
this, which is a little bit of a spoiler alert, but just know that I walk in the house, and Tajik and Sebi are in a bed taking a nap because it was air conditioned in that room. And I crawl in bed with them. So the 3 of us are laying in bed for a minute. I said, I don't know if this is real. This is going to end up in a bonfire. It's really not where we need to be. So,
Oh my
So
gosh.
I had a
Well,
quick question about just kind of a wrap up question about your relationship because you talk a lot so lovingly about your wife,
that's
and I
because
know
she's
you've been
there.
married a long time. Well, my question is, like, you're always talking about the participants growing and learning. Like, how much of this has informed or helped your marriage? Like, do you take things and you
It's
feel like it makes your marriage
other way
stronger?
around.
Oh,
So
okay.
in August, we will have been married 36 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
congratulations.
It's like, and in show
So
business,
you're using that to
well,
inform your advice.
let me qualify that. And what, you got to remember, we've been married for 36 years, raised 2 children, and I've been working in show business freelance the entire time. We've never known what's going to be around the corner 6 months from now. And there have been many times where we were screwed. And maybe again, I don't know. So
Yeah.
my wife, I can share with you because she's given me permission, and I've shared it before, is almost 40 years sober. Okay. And
My husband's coming up on 8 years sober.
pardon me, your husband?
My husband's he's coming up on 9 years sober this month.
Okay,
my
happy
husband.
birthday to him.
Yes.
I only say that to say that if you know anything about sobriety and 12-step and things like that, that you're constantly doing an inventory and a search spiritually, right? And her journey is my journey, as you will know, being married to somebody. So, and that's only a part of it, because even without that, my wife is a seeker and she loves philosophy and spirituality and all this stuff, to the point where my wife, what's funny is my daughter, my son, and I give her shit about it all the time, and then walk out of the house and spew the things she said like we're enlightened.
Same here.
Right?
We're all the time. We're like, we get it. You can't go 1 step. You can't go 3 if you didn't go 1.
Right.
Blah blah.
All
We
of the
get it.
bumper
But then all of it. But it applies
Right.
to life.
And so
Totally.
what I
yes.
will say is that Robbie and I have a relationship where we are each other's coaches a lot. You know,
That's nice.
because you can't see your own stuff, right? Both of us are in therapy separately, but we talk about stuff around this table right here every day. That's rough and tumble and emotionally, in another level. And so that's one of the things I tell people, is that I think the best place to go if you're having a relationship problem is a trained, licensed family marriage counselor, therapist. That's where you go.
Yes.
But if you're here and this is a TV show and I'm your host, what I'm going to bring is my experience navigating relationship. And as I say to them, think of me as like you're shopping in a thrift store and you're trying on jackets. Okay. So think of my advice as those jackets. Some of them fit and you buy them, and some of them you put back on the rack, because some of this might be bullshit. Right.
Yeah.
I'm just doing my best to listen to you deeply and share where it hits me, and maybe it'll help. And constantly trying to remind them that this is not clinical. I'm not that dude. Right. I'm kind of an uncle. Go with that. Right? Crazy uncle is fine with me too. So I think the answer is certainly there. And I think for the viewers too, I think things come up in an extreme setting on the show that make couples in relationship have conversations about it.
I agree 100%. That's why I asked,
And so
because
that does happen for
kind of do
us.
that. Yeah.
But a lot of it is bringing things that we have had to, mountains we've had to climb.
Yeah.
And trying to lower the mountain to a molehill for those who are in the climb is what my goal is. I guess. That was a terrible.
Speaking of jackets, Amy, this is a good segue. We want to know why in the bonfires everybody is in like tiny dresses and you're always in a jacket.
Well, I'm not always in a jacket, and first of all, if I'm left to style myself in Hawaii, it's t-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops. Okay?
Well, yes, of course.
Right. And if left to style in life, it's go to J. Crew, because all the clothes, it's like Garanimals for adults. Like all the clothes go together, just buy anything, right?
Yes.
Luckily, they don't let me do that.
Yeah.
So I have Darius Attell and Kat Wright. Darius, the wardrobe stylist, and Kat's there on set with me, and they pick the clothes. Often I'm like, I don't get it, but I trust you and I'll wear it. And
no, but you're like in a cute jacket and a jaunty shirt, and we're
It's
like
long sleeve. I'm like, is
we're like,
roasting?
is it hot or is it cool there? And the ladies are freezing, and he's in the right outfit.
the answer is any other host would be sweating their ass off. And I joke that I don't sweat. It's unprofessional.
You really don't, because I was looking for that. I was
I
going to
don't
put
sweat
that in my
here.
notes as something funny, like, oh, Mark is all sweaty, but you weren't.
Here's
You
the thing
weren't.
about that, man. And it's so stupid, and they give me shit about this on set. I talk about it all the time. I say talent, when they're on camera and they sweat profusely, which happens all the time.
Yes.
is mostly the fear that they're going to sweat,
Yeah.
It's true.
which I think we can
Yeah.
extrapolate out into relationship,
Yep.
right? And so I wear a undershirt that's like a Under Armour thing,
Yeah.
so that because there's nothing you can do. It's hot, you're gonna sweat, and that shows through on the shirt. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
facial sweat normally is stress.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Interesting.
I'm in
Okay.
my element there. I'm not stressed. I'm on camera, and that
Okay.
doesn't flip me out. And
Hmm.
and having Antiques Roadshow, I'm working in a battlefield in August in Louisiana or whatever, and it just doesn't work for me to have to blow dry my face every 10 minutes. I want to tape.
Yeah.
So I tell them,
Right.
I'm like, look, we're taping for 3 weeks. I will sweat on the 4th week, and I will pee on the 5th week. In the meantime, we'll work together. So I'm not uncomfortable. I wear long pants because they don't want me in shorts. It's best for America that I don't wear shorts. I don't particularly like wearing jackets, but they look cute, so I'd much rather be cute than comfortable.
Okay.
And the shoes were a choice. So
Okay.
I love the sneakers.
I,
I love.
I have another question. How often are the bonfires, and whose idea was the temptation light?
So the bonfires are like every other day, maybe every third day. It depends. Some of them are quicker. Sometimes they will have 4 days in between without a bonfire. And then I'm playing golf and going to the beach and going, this is the best.
Nice. Nice.
But you can count on like every other day and a half-ish average. Temptation light, not really sure. I think it showed up in Temptation Island started in 2001, and it's in several countries. It's gone forever. I'm just the schmuck who didn't get to have it for 20 years. Like it got canceled.
Okay.
Or I wouldn't be coming to you from, Van Nuys in this house. I'll only show you this part of. So I think that was a bit that we saw. They saw somewhere else and said, let's try that this year. And for the record, I was adamantly against it. Not adamant. I'm never adamant. I trust the producers, but I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't like gimmicks. I like real to be real. And to me, it was a gimmick. But then I had to put my ego aside, the being right, and I had to look at it and go, hold on a second, what is this actually? And it kind of plays into what I say is what makes the show special. It's not, people think it's about, did he cheat or did she cheat? And that the clips are the facts of that matter. The bonfire clips are the facts. You get to see what happened. Yes. And I say that's not this experience at all. The experience is, what does your mind say is going on, and how do you feel about it? What triggers you, and what is that feel? How do you feel about it, whether it happened or not? So if you see a clip of something going down and you project on that was cheating, when in fact it was a lap dance, that says something. Or if you see them in bed making out and you don't have a feeling, you have a feeling of relief as opposed to pain, that says something. So the temptation light coming on and being ambiguous, because people have asked me, so what's the criteria? Like, what are the rules?
Right. Right.
You're watching the wrong show. This isn't a game show.
Oh, that was my question. I wanted to know, did it mean
sex?
Means, we don't know, right?
It
just
means
means
exactly
intimacy.
what I say, that someone on the other side of the island has given into temptation.
Okay.
And how that's quantified and who makes that call, unimportant. What's important, either you're going to do a true crime podcast where we need to find the facts and solve the crime, or you're on a journey of learning about yourself. So the question to ask is, when that light goes off, what does that make you feel? Because there's answers.
Stress.
Not
stress.
That means someone put the P in the V. That's what the light means. Right? That means that line was crossed, because that's the other thing I talk about on the show all the time. You guys come to the show going, here are my rules. You can sit on the bed. We can kiss, but we can't touch. We can lay on each other, but we can't have intercourse. We can hold hands, but we can't kiss. Whatever the rules are. And I'm like, that's just bullshit. Because life does not work that way. And either you came here to experience being single fully to get an answer, or you didn't. And so if I said the rules are, if the light comes on, boy A put this into girl B. Right. Or vice versa. That was a little crass, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Oh,
We
we
get what
get
you're
what
saying.
you're
I
saying.
I
We
You're
we
never
get
too
it.
I
craft for
feel
us, Mark.
the more ambiguous it is, the more left up to the participant's interpretation of what's going on is the most uncomfortable for them, and yet possibly the place where their answers can be the truest because it's not about
It's
what
interesting.
happened.
It's
Yeah,
interpretation. I get it.
it's like what I was saying to somebody about cheating. Even the phrase is wrong. Cheating is to say there's a game with rules and you broke the rules and you cheated me in the game.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, often the cheating, the having an inappropriate relationship with somebody outside of your relationship has very little to do with the person you're in the relationship with. It has everything to do with the person who chose that behavior. So we say cheating is
Mm-hmm.
because you did this to me.
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, you did what you did for you, and it may have nothing to do with me at all. Right?
Right. Yeah, it usually doesn't.
Well,
Right. Right.
it's shades of gray, but 50 shades of gray, actually. But the point is, we as humans really would wish we would love for things to fit in the boxes of rules. So if I follow these rules, I'm going to get this outcome, and that's how this works. The instruction manual came this way, and so if I do these things, then this is what I get. Well, anybody who's been in a relationship for more than a month realizes that that's just bullshit. All right, the rules change every day, and that's not it. Forgiveness, tolerance, patience, communication. Okay, those are good rules.
So in my work, I interview a lot of therapists, and a therapist said to me recently, when someone steps outside the relationship, you don't ask yourself who did they cheat with. You ask yourself who were they trying to become, and that's why they cheated.
What hole are they filling?
Yeah, that's
That's a
exactly,
horrible
yeah.
metaphor, but
No, I get what you're
Right.
saying, but like I think that's what you're trying to
what
get
pain are
at with
they
these
acting
people.
out of?
Yeah, like who do they want to be?
Right. And
Yeah,
but it's impossible to not internalize that as how does that
yeah,
affect me, And
yeah.
you know, that's I paint with a broad stroke a lot because it's TV and it goes quickly and I'm not a professional. But um but the nuances of it, go back to the phrase that Robbie fed me that I've said on TV and pretended it was mine, which is the quote from Ram Dass, which is saying the only thing in relationship that we can do, I'm paraphrasing, the only thing I can do for you is work on me, and the only thing you can do for me is work on you. And all I can
Yep.
really do
Mm-hmm.
is support you in that journey and hope that we're on the same page at the end of the day.
I think Mary Payne and I have talked in the past about having an old lady in their corns version of Temptation Island where, women of a certain age are there. And I think we need maybe Robbie to host that version
Oh boy.
because she sounds super wise and I would love to
Wow.
get some information from her.
She is so brutally honest, she'll be canceled in a month. Uh, so I'm Southern. Your accent reminds me of my area actually. So I think I'm going to guess you're Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, something like that. All
Mississippi.
right, I was not. No, that's not great, but I'm South Carolina, so I have
South
the
Carolina.
gene of you know saying the things that make people feel good. Robbie's from New
Yes.
Jersey, and she doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you could have your wish, what show would you host next? Where would you love to go? What would you love to be on The Bachelor
I don't
hosting?
think so.
Ooh, that would be
I
so
mean,
good.
It would be so good.
I, I
I
don't
might
think
watch it
so.
then.
I
We know you're going to stay with Temptation Island, hopefully, thank
well,
God.
let's
But
say
if you
this:
could do something
in
else.
all the shows I've done, and I've done a gazillion of them.
Mhm.
Most of them last for like a week, but I've done a gazillion of them. I've never had an experience like this one. So I would
Good.
not have picked this subject matter, this extreme
Mhm.
crazy thing. But this is something I talk about now as an adult to younger people who ask me for advice. I'm like, be careful what you wish for because the universe works crazy. So now I found this place where I'm, from a work standpoint, the most fully expressed I've ever been able to be and have the biggest
Mhm.
voice to talk about things that matter to me to others and be heard by them. And it doesn't look like
Mhm.
what I thought it would look like. I joke it,
Hmm.
Yeah.
the show looks like Cinemax after 11 and feels like Oprah. So I
Yes.
don't know that
Yes.
and I also don't operate from a place of, I work now to not operate from a place of I wish I was doing something else. I really
Yeah.
works for my
I
own
Yeah.
got you.
sanity to be cool where I am. But as far as The Bachelor goes, look, their style of producing and stuff I can't speak to. but
Yeah.
I've seen some of the exit stories and I know some of the people involved. I don't know if that's the place for me. I wouldn't mind
Well,
dropping in.
they can talk about it on your new show, The Exit Interview, which will be, TM belongs to
I
Amy
like,
Archer.
Streaming on
yeah.
Peacock coming this
I'll tell you
fall.
what I would like to do. I wouldn't mind having some outlet to do the stuff that we're doing and also get to show the lighter, funnier, sillier part of me, which we don't really
Mhm.
do on Temptation Island. It's just not the place for it. It shows up every now and then.
Right.
But, you know, I'm, we joke about this. Robbie wants to watch movies that are about crisis and relationship. I want to watch Will Ferrell lick poop.
There
Okay.
you go.
So, ironically, I end up hosting these shows that are highly confrontational. Moment of Truth was one of them, Temptation Island.
Mhm.
I hate confrontation. I hate it. So I like the
I do
game
too.
shows where I give you money and you cry because you're happy, not because you're sad. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I'm grateful to be where I am. I'm open to wherever I'm supposed to be next. And the prayer or meditation I try to remember to say is, where can I be of service best? Because the one thing I do know is that when I'm not happy, the only remedy to being happy is for me to get out of my own misery and be of service to other people. Not like Mother Teresa, but I
Hmm.
know that when I turn my focus outward, I'm a better version of me. So anything that gives me that opportunity, I'm grateful to have, and we'll see what comes around the corner. I would like to ride this wave for as long as the wave will go. I wouldn't mind expanding in the areas where the audience is asking for. I think there will be a podcast in the near future. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like, but I got some
Mhm.
ideas. I
Okay.
even have toyed with the idea of, like, I joke about saying I'm going to take like a solo stove, those little campfire things, and two
Mhm.
lounge
Yeah.
chairs and set up like on a street corner somewhere and say, as a couple walks by, you want to have a bonfire? Gotta
Yes.
do it. Or
Perfect.
couples reach out to me all the time, say, I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, let's just do that. We'll Zoom a bonfire.
Let's
Let's
just
do it.
Mhm.
You know.
Mhm.
Perfect.
We like it.
So I don't
Perfect.
know, man.
Perfect.
Peacock
I'm really
original.
grateful to be
That's
working. I'm
right.
really grateful to be doing this show. I'm happy to talk to you. Um,
Well, we're happy that you're doing what you're doing because it provides endless joy for all of
Thank you.
us.
Thank you.
We love Temptation Island and we are so happy we got to talk to you. This is a great way to end it. And you said you're not doing anything until November. Is that true? And does that mean that's when the next Temptation Island's being filmed?
Uh,
Mm.
so yes and no, and yes and no, and no. So the answer is I have no idea when or if the next Temptation Island is going to happen.
Okay.
So,
Wait. If
well,
do we need to start writing letters right
I
now?
would not stop you from any writing. Just so you're aware, this is it's so funny to me what people project. I read a lot. I read far more than I should have read it and other things. And what people think my
Uh-huh.
life is and what my life is, it's so funny to me. I'm the last to know most things, right? I have no idea
Yeah.
if and when we're doing another season. Don't know.
Fair.
That's
Mhm.
that's
Down to do
showbiz
it.
because they tell you
Mhm.
last minute and then you're like, get over to
The other
Maui and
one
you're like,
that
I'm
I
there.
loved was somebody said, Mark's sleeves are rolled so perfectly. And somebody said, that's because they tailor those shirts perfectly and they're probably sewn and taped. And I'm like, no, that's off the rack. Um,
Yeah.
and so, what am I doing now? So, I did a keynote talk last month for a business group. So that's something I'm exploring doing more of. I
Oh, that's
I
neat.
am see some corporate stuff from time to time that predates Temptation Island, but now I'm trying to move into some keynote talk is really about making.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I'm officiating the wedding of a friend of my son's who's like a surrogate child of mine, so I'm going to do that August
Yeah,
4th. I'm very excited about that and a little nervous. And I question
that's
anybody who has the
cool.
host of Temptation Island perform their wedding, but that's another. Um, and I'm writing a book. So I'm trying to get that happening, and I'm actually I'm going to go to Boston to visit my daughter. I'm going to
Nice.
officiate another wedding, and I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it. Somebody reached out to me, DM me on Instagram, and I'm like, no, I don't do this. But then we started talking, and they live in Boston, and my daughter's there. I said, so, I mean, okay, so I'm performing a wedding for a fan.
Here,
Wow.
we'll prevent more people from
I mean, they
asking
can
by
ask,
saying
you
that
know,
fan is
here's the
paying
problem.
$150,000.
People said you should do it, and that's a business and charge them. And I'm like, I can't. I don't know how to charge money for that. So these sweet couple, they were so sweet, and I'm like, okay. I mean, if you'll just cover my flights and a little bit of expenses, we're good. But it's not a business, so I'm
Wow.
doing that just
Wow.
because I have trouble saying no to people, and they seem so sweet. And then,
You could do some
Wow.
Temptation Island weddings, definitely. I'm sure those people would want you to do
well,
it.
There's only been a couple.
well,
There's
Julian
only
and
been a couple of
Kristen
weddings.
asked me to officiate, and I was set to do it, and I couldn't get there. So,
Oh.
and that broke my heart because I really thought that would have been fun.
That would have
I'm
been great.
also
That would have been
scheduled to
perfect.
go on the road hosting the stage version of Wheel of Fortune in
Love.
Halloween. I leave Halloween and I go for a few weeks doing that around the country. It's something I've done for years with Price is Right, and they only started Wheel of
Yeah.
Fortune last season, and I jumped on to do that, and I think I'm going to do it, but
Are you coming to DC?
I don't know.
Because if so, I'll
Well,
come.
go on
I'm very good at Wheel of Fortune.
wheeloffortunelive and figure it out, and I don't know where I'll be there. I'm scheduled to start October 31st till like Thanksgiving, so we'll see. But I don't,
Sounds
Okay, I
fun.
love that.
you know what I'm doing? I'm growing vegetables and you know, hanging out with my wife and waiting to see what's next.
Sounds
You
good.
know, that I
Sounds good.
really should have more to tell you than promote, but I don't have anything. Nothing.
Listen, you've got a book, you're officiating weddings, you're going on the road with Wheel of Fortune, and you got a
No,
podcast where you're going to solo stove it on
I
the
don't have
corner.
a
I think it all
podcast.
sounds very
I
exciting.
just sit here and talk about it a lot.
Yes, okay. All right. Well, we think you have at least 2 spinoffs that you could do on Peacock, and we're going to try to make that happen. We're going to start a write-in
I like that.
campaign.
You want to
We
see what I've
we
been
need all
working on?
this
I'll
back
show you what I've
footage.
actually been working on.
Okay.
Hold on.
He stood up, everybody. He's walked off to the side. He's coming back. Here he is. He's showing us tomatoes.
A weird eggplant.
Oh,
An
that's
Million
cool.
onions.
That's cool.
So,
Oh,
you know, and I talk
gorgeous.
about this a lot. The best version of me is when I'm outside of myself. So when I get hung up, I go in the backyard and plant stuff.
That's
and
cool.
then I feel better. And then I feed people, and that's cool. So that's what
I love that. I love that. I can't grow anything,
Yeah.
but I do love when people
I
can.
don't agree. You have kids?
Well,
Anybody can do it. The key is to
Yes.
You do?
not over water.
Yeah.
I have a 20-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old son, and Amy has 16-year-old twin
So
daughters.
when they're hungry, you knew they were hungry. And when
Yes.
they were thirsty, you knew when they were thirsty.
Yes.
Same thing with a garden.
Mark, did you just bonfire
I
us?
may have. I may have.
I
I'm
think
just
you
so glad
did.
to have
I
somebody to
think
talk
you
to
did.
today. All right.
Thank you so,
so much.
This has been amazing. This has been our dream. And when I posted on Instagram and you wrote back, I was like, I'm in. And I'm immediately texting Amy. I was like, I think I'm in with Mark L. Walberg. He's finally going to come on. So we were so excited. So thank you so much. Don't hang up. We're going to play our outro music, which is the same as the intro music.
You're not
which is
gonna
this.
tempt me.